I'll just give a little brief introduction. Sujata, 1 minute. Sujata has a doctorate in educational anthropology and an international diploma in development administration from the International Institute of Cooperation in the University at Rome. She has conducted several extensive empirical research studies on education of tribes in India and secondary education. Dr. Sujata has authored 8 books. 2 of them were published by International Institute of Education Planning with the UNESCO in Paris. Many of her research papers and articles have been published in national and international journals. Her specialization in education is on education of the disadvantaged groups, educational policy analysis, comparative education in developing countries, and school management. She is a convener of the NUPA Occasional Papers series and the editor of the Antwerp newsletter. Besides that, this is just a little frame. Within it, there's so much that she must have done, the kind of study. She visits schools, little places all across the country, and first-hand information of what is going on. Warm welcome. Over to you, Sujata.
Good morning. I'm little scared, like I'm feeling little hesitant and also a little bit scared of you people. Why? Because you are all teachers. So we are always scared of teachers, isn't it? And that to be DPS school teachers. I'm not a DPS product. For your kind information, let me start with my own little bit of background, not personal background, but education background. That will give you bit of, I'm product of a government school. I studied in a government school where it is a co-education. It was a small town, not a big city. So I was born and brought up in a small town 35 to 40 years back. I think some of you may not have born that time also. That is a government co-education school. Whenever I got some problems in life, I sit quietly and think. I always got in front of me my teachers, not my parents. I always see the teachers, then I think, you know, he might have told like this, she might have told me like this. That means the impact of the teachers on life is very, very great. Either it is a government school or a public school, I didn't pay any fees for my schooling. It was free that time for girls in 1960s and 70s. In Andhra Pradesh, government schools never charged any fees for girls. So I have a privilege to go to the school without paying the fees. But there was only one condition on my head at my family. If you fail, we will not send you anymore to the school. So it was always a threat on my head. If I fail, if I don't get good marks, my mother may make me to sit at home. But I always used to wonder, is it a privilege? When I moved away for my college studies and university studies to Delhi, where I wrote competitive exams and I got through it. And I always used to think, when I see many people who are, whose parents are IAS or IFS or big business shorts or all some kind of big families, I always saw in my PhD, in my post-graduation, what is the difference between them and me? I always felt I have a lot of advantages. I feel so happy to be nostalgic about my childhood. I didn't have any restrictions. I always used to enjoy with my cousins, half a dozen cousins. Summer holidays, no fans, no AC, still enjoyable life. There was no TV, so no boring for life. There was no mobile phones or the telephones even at home. Still we know where we are, all the children, we know where we can find each other. And there was limited kind of resources, yet we enjoyed waiting for the festival to get the new clothes. It's a really fantastic. And to wait for the schools reopening to get again new clothes and new books, all these things were really an advantage. So I feel that when there is a scarcity, if you look at it positive side of it, it has its own beauty, its own advantages. Therefore, when I started my life in Delhi for last 40 years, I always feel it, am I the part of Delhi or not? I question myself. Sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. Where I say no, I take it as an advantage for me. Where I say yes, that is also an advantage for me. To be in the academics, to be with my colleagues who are born and brought up in Bombay, Delhi or Calcutta, and coming from a small town, what is my advantages? I have some kind of different type of understanding of the things, so I can get along very well with my colleagues rather than some people who have ego problem. So there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages. Why I brought this account to you is, when we talk about inclusion, we always have two different perspectives. One is insider's perspective. I will not go anybody sociology, anthropology background here, they may understand it. It is called emic and ethic. So emic is something insider's point of view, and ethic is something that is outsider's perspective of the things. So where we have the education, when we talk about the schooling, education and all these public schools, private schools, government schools and all those things, actually how it started, historically if you look at it, family was enough to socialize, to give training, to train you to be a good adult in life, to pick up the same occupations what your parents are following. The culture, the language, the mannerisms, the way of life, everything used to be the role, the entire responsibility was with the family, kin group. So they used to socialize, they used to make us to be fit into the back into the community or the society as a grown-up adults. But when we started looking at more knowledge generated, more information and more specialization, then we started looking at a kind of organized institutional arrangement, that is the school. The school came into existence because it needs organized way of learning and specialized way of learning, and also there is some kind of different type of training we needed which parents cannot give. Therefore the schools came. I don't go into history of the schools. Therefore when the schools came, if you all look at it, till 60s or maybe 50s or 60s, schools were also same like families. Schools were like more like reflecting the families, because only selected few were going to the school. Only selected few had a privilege to attend the schools. Therefore schools were having homogeneous group of the children, and they were also preparing them according to the parents' interest and kind of expectations they used to take into account. So children were getting similar kind of education what the families were giving, but extended a little bit more knowledge, information, specialization, all those kind of things. But the disadvantage we have in such a case is, especially in case of India, where our society is hierarchical and social structure is stratified based on caste system and class also. More importantly, caste became a basis for the stratification. If you look at social stratification, if you ever have a time, read a book, Social Stratification by M.N. Srinivas, written in 70s, the sociologist. He gives us very good analysis of the caste system in India, how the social structure has emerged. When it was emerging stage, it didn't have that much of hierarchy as we attribute today. It used to be because of the occupations, because of the work related in the beginning. But later on, as a human being nature, we always try to dominate others. It is a nature of the human being also. You want to oppress some people who are weak so that you will become more powerful. In that process, the social hierarchy of the caste, the stratification of the system of the society has emerged in such a way, it became one of the worst thing for our own society to progress. What we created, the social stratification, it became a big hindrance for us to progress. Otherwise, why not? If India 500 years, 600 years back has so much of knowledge, so much of prosperity and all that, why today we don't have all that? Where do we lost it? How we lost it? If you just think it, somehow or other, this social stratification and differentiation, what we created, became a hindrance for us. So if I think I'm happy